This video is jam-packed and I actually have over 10 dinner ideas in this video, plus some desserts as well. We're going to be making some BLTs, some chicken Alfredo, breakfast sandwiches, chocolate chip cookies, cider beef and mashed potatoes, Copycat Taco Bell Crunchwrap Supremes, crispy chicken salads, mozzarella stuffed meatballs, pulled pork mac and cheese, spaghetti, and steak and baked potatoes, and lots more. So I'm sure, as some of you already know, I actually wrote a cookbook a few years ago called the Essential Pantry Cookbook. If you don't have it, of course, I highly recommend it. It's always linked in my description box below. But pantry cooking is near and dear to my heart. And why is that? Well, first of all, it helps us use what we have so we waste less food, but we also spend less money on groceries by cooking from what we already have in our home. And bonus, a lot of times it's a lot quicker and cheaper than going out. I've been making a really conscious effort for the last couple weeks to make a lot of food with minimal ingredients from the store, mostly with what I have in my fridge, pantry, and freezer. And so today I'm gonna share all of those meals with you. Today is a true use what you have pantry meal because I just got home from a trip and I look like this because I just took a shower. I really just want to get in my shower first thing when I get home and get in comfy clothes, but it's 5 p.m. I need to cook dinner. So I found some ground beef in my freezer. I'm gonna saute that up and make some marinara sauce, meat sauce, whatever. I've got spaghetti. I found some garlic bread in the freezer, and Kira really likes Alfredo pasta, so I'm gonna go ahead and make her this because I got some chicken in the fridge that I can use up, and I also have stuff to make a salad, so we're good to go. I get questions sometimes about defrosting meat. This is a little over a pound and a quarter of ground meat. I don't even use the defrost function on my microwave. I just put it on 5 minutes at 50% power, and then I'll flip it over and add more time if it needs it, but normally a couple times like this will do the trick. So I'm sauteing my ground beef. It's still a little bit frozen in the center. That's totally fine, it'll cook. I'm gonna add some of this garlic paste, and then I like to use the dried minced onion just because my kids are not huge fans of like chunks of onion in their sauce, and honestly it doesn't bother me either way. So I normally just use that, and then I'm just gonna season it with some salt and pepper and probably a little bit of Italian seasoning. I've got some water boiling for the Alfredo. So this is just some leftover pasta that I had, like maybe a third of a box. So I salted the water. I'm gonna go ahead and boil that. And then I'm gonna combine that with this lemon temptress pasta sauce that I got. This was like new in one of my Walmart hauls, but yeah, we're gonna try it. All right, so let's see what we got for salad. This head of iceberg lettuce is actually untouched. I can see it's a little bit yucky on one side, but I think we can salvage a lot of it. Oh, this cucumber looks really good. Okay, so I'm going to cucumber, dill, parsley, red onion, tomatoes. All right, we're good to go with the salad. Okay, so this works out perfect because this is leftover Parmesan chicken that I had in the fridge. So I just heated that up. I put the sauce in there. I'm gonna put the chicken in there. Everything's steaming up. What I like to do also is, especially with Alfredo sauce, I find that a lot of times there'll just be like a bunch left in the jar. And so to get it out, I'll just pour a little bit of milk or half and half in there, and then just shake it up, and then you can easily get the rest out. So I just tried a bite of this so I could tell you guys what I thought about it, and it's really good. Delicious. It's like, you know how sometimes you get jarred sauce and it's like way too lemony? This isn't. It's just like the perfect amount of lemon. Okay, so I want to let you guys know that I have a really fun sponsor for today's video, and that is Body Restore. Thank you to them for sponsoring today's video. It's actually the perfect time because Mother's Day is coming up, and you guys know that it's often difficult to buy for a woman who has everything. And if you're not familiar with Body Restore, they make these awesome shower steamers. I have been using these for years, but this is honestly the best brand that I have ever tried. Body Restore shower steamers are the first of their kind at-home shower steamers, and they elevate your shower experience with aromatherapy scents that create a relaxing and soothing setting while you're in the shower. I personally love these because I'm not a person that likes to take baths like at all, and I really love taking a shower at the end of a long day. I find it really relaxing. I find that it helps me sleep at night. And unlike other shower steamers that use artificial fragrance oils, Body Restore only uses natural essential oils that will not make the shower floor slippery. They also are super long lasting. They can last up to 10 minutes in the shower. I've been using these consistently for the past 3 weeks or so, and I find that as well. They do last a long time, much longer than any other shower steamers that I've tried. Make sure that your steamer is placed outside of the mainstream of the shower water to make sure that it lasts the full duration. There are a bunch of fun scents in the collector's box. It comes with eucalyptus mint, citrus grove, lavender, floral rose, fresh tea tree, milk honey, jasmine, chamomile, cocoa orange, and bergamot spring. I also really love the eucalyptus mint ones. These ones are great, especially if you like have a sore throat or a runny nose, or you're a little bit stuffy. It really helps open up your sinuses while you're in the shower. So if you guys want to get 20% off this collector's box, now is the perfect time to take advantage of that. I'll have a link in my description box below, and you can use code Chapin to get 20% off your collector's box. Relax, refresh, and emerged energized with Body Restore shower steamers. Don't forget to go to the link in my description box below. Use code Chapin for 20% off. And I really hope you guys try these. Even if you're not buying them for a gift, I hope that you buy them for yourself and treat yourself, because I know as moms, we don't always think to treat ourselves to something like this, but it's really gonna give you a super relaxing shower experience, so highly recommend it. Okay, so I feel like the quintessential pantry cookie is chocolate chip cookies, either that or peanut butter cookies. But there is honestly a little bit of a learning curve to chocolate chip cookies, so I want to give you all of my best tips. I do really think that the quality of the butter that you use impacts, like, especially baked goods. I'm using Land O'Lakes, but I don't, or Land O'Lakes, I guess. I don't always have this on hand, so just use whatever you have on hand. 2 sticks of softened butter. Another thing I do to keep this really simple is whatever chocolate chip I'm using, I just use the recipe on the back. They're pretty much all the same. I'm using these Ghirardelli semi-sweet chocolate chips. I really prefer semi-sweet and not milk chocolate because the cookie dough itself is so sweet that I think that semi-sweet chocolate really contrasts with it. 3/4 cup of white sugar, 3/4 cup of brown sugar, and yes, this is a 3/4 cup measuring cup. If your butter isn't softened, you can just nuke it in the microwave like 10-15 second increments until it softens. And then you want to cream this on like medium-high speed until it's fluffy. You want to make sure you use a spatula and scrape down the sides while you're creaming this so it mixes evenly. All right, so see how that looks super fluffy? That is what you want. So we're going to scrape this down, and then I'm going to add 2 eggs, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, if I could speak. I really like this vanilla bean paste, and then I'm going to stir that in. Okay, so I added my flour and 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking soda. I typically don't mix the dry ingredients separately. I just feel like when you're making one batch of cookies, it's not that big of a deal. But then just mix this until the dough just comes together. And then I'm gonna pour in this bag of chocolate chips with my left hand. So to perfectly bake these cookies, there's a couple things you need. You need a sheet tray with parchment paper, which I think works the very best. That way you don't have to spray the pan, they don't brown too quickly, and they don't burn on the bottom. Also a cookie scoop. I got this one from Walmart. You can also get them from Amazon. I'll link the ones that I have down below. But this allows you to perfectly shape and scoop even amounts of cookie dough onto the sheet. And so I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then we'll bake them. Okay, so you wanna space these a couple inches apart on the sheet trays, and then stick these in the oven. I have the oven set to 375, non-convection setting, because you don't want them to brown too fast. I'm gonna put these in for 10 to 11 minutes, and I'll rotate them halfway through. Okay, so this is the perfect time to take them out of the oven. They baked for about 12.5 minutes. It's really gonna depend on your oven, but These may not look done on the top to you. However, if you can see, you can see them starting to get a little bit brown around the edge. We're gonna leave them on the baking sheet for about 5 minutes and they'll continue to cool. And once they cool down a little bit, we'll put them on a wire rack until they cool completely. But this will make it so that your chocolate chip cookies stay soft and chewy. If you continue to bake them until they're brown on top, they're gonna be crispy, which some people like them like that, but I don't prefer them like that. Okay, so these have cooled off a bit. They're perfect. You can see the bottoms are a little bit golden brown, still soft and chewy. That's what the bottom looks like. So there you go. Perfect cookies. Today we are making BLTs with everything that we have on hand. I did not go to the grocery store. I have this ciabatta loaf from Wild Grain. I will leave a link in the description box below. If you guys want to try Wild Grain, it is one of the best subscriptions that I have tried. I've been getting it for the last 3 weeks. Tons of bread, croissants, desserts, whatever you want. It's delicious. I have 2 packs of bacon from Good Chop, which I'm also going to bake in the oven. But first, we're going to put this in the oven for 20 minutes to make our sandwiches. You like bread? I've got 2 packages there. Our bread is done, so I'm just kind of like keeping it warm on the stovetop here. I'm gonna go ahead and put the bacon in the oven. This is on a parchment paper lined sheet. And then we've got some potato crowns, as they are called, golden crispy crowns down there for a side for our BLTs. All right, so I'm trying to slice the bread here on a bias. So we have some sandwich slices. This bread, it smells so delicious. I snuck a slice with butter on it. All right, we need salt. Always salt your components of your sandwich before you put it together. Pepper. BLTs are just one of those things I feel like I always have the ingredients for, and it makes a super quick dinner. It's especially helpful on those nights when you don't really have anything planned and you're not sure what you're gonna make. If you have fries or tater tots in the freezer, you can throw those on the side, or chips or fruit or cottage cheese or cucumber salad or anything you have. It's a great solution and something that I always keep on rotation. Okay, so tonight for dinner, I'm gonna make a recipe out of my cookbook, the Essential Pantry Cookbook. This is available on Amazon. I'll link it down below. It has a ton of good recipes in it for recipes using everything you already probably have in your house. So we're gonna make the Alfredo sauce. Out of here, I've got all of my ingredients here. It is a little bit non-traditional because it uses some cream cheese, but it's good. I've made it plenty of times. So I've got a pot here for that. I'm boiling some water for some rotini. And then I've got some chicken breasts here. I'm just seasoning these with salt and pepper. Oh, I'm gonna put some garlic powder on there, I almost forgot. Salt and pepper, some Italian herbs, a little bit of lemon juice. I'm gonna use garlic powder and flip them over. And then I'm gonna saute them in a skillet. I've got some vegetable oil heated up in this skillet. I'm just gonna add my chicken. So I am putting the Alfredo sauce together in a pot on the stove. I sauteed some butter and some garlic, added some flour and some seasonings. I did not write this recipe and include it in my cookbook to be a traditional Alfredo sauce recipe. In fact, it is very much not traditional. However, the premise of my cookbook is that you have this list of core ingredients. I believe there's 80 of them that you keep in your house, and then you can make all of these recipes out of. And so obviously there were some things that were not on that list, so I had to modify a little bit. This recipe, like I said, does use cream cheese. I didn't actually have any plain cream cheese on hand. I only had garden vegetable. I went ahead and used it. I wouldn't recommend that if possible, because there was a little bit of a flavor to that cream cheese that I had to adjust. I think I added some pepper and some lemon juice to kind of even the flavor out, but I also had some green beans in the pantry. So I went ahead and heated those up, made the Alfredo sauce, boiled the pasta. I am cutting the chicken. You can see also that I finished the chicken in the oven after I sauteed it on the stovetop, just so it could finish cooking through without burning it all on the outside. And this is always a crowd pleaser in my house. It's definitely very kid friendly. Everyone likes it, and it's fairly quick to come together. I would say in about 30 minutes. The next pantry meal I'm making is cider beef, and this is also a lesson in manipulating your family to help you with what to make for dinner. So what you do is you call or text or you ask them, hey, I'll make you anything you want for dinner tonight. What sounds really good? And then when they tell you, voila, you don't have to think of it on your own. So that's what I actually did on this night. It was kind of chilly for spring, and this is a recipe I have been making for a super long time. It was originally a recipe that I saw on Rachel Ray's daytime TV show, but basically you take cubes of beef. Yes. You can use sirloin or stew meat or cut up chuck roast or arm roast, or basically anything will work because you're going to slow cook it. And then you saute that in a Dutch oven because we're also going to cook this in the oven with some salt and pepper. I usually put some garlic powder in there. I add carrots and onions and sort of get that all started on the stovetop. And then before we put it in the oven, we're going to add some flour just so we can thicken the gravy a little bit. And then just make sure that you stir that around so all of the flour evenly coats the beef and the onions and the carrots. I want to say this recipe calls for turnips also, but I don't typically add those. I typically leave them out. Then I'm going to add 1 can of beef consomme. I think that's more than the recipe calls for. I've honestly kind of modified this recipe to fit our tastes. And then I'm also going to add some apple cider. Make sure that you actually use apple cider for this and not apple juice. Otherwise it will be way too sweet. So then after everything is combined, I bring it to a simmer, put the lid on. I don't think I've showed this Dutch oven much on my channel. It's kind of newish. I don't know. I'll link it down below if you guys are interested. It's a really nice one. And then I also wanted to make some mashed potatoes to go with this. And I'm making some of these Parmesan biscuits that I got from Wild Grain. They turned out really good. So the original recipe actually calls to make white cheddar mashed potatoes. I typically don't add the white cheddar cheese to the mashed potatoes because I just find that it adds unnecessary calories and you can't really taste it. But you can see that the beef stew or cider beef is done. The biscuits are done. Now here's the other thing. So Adam was randomly talking to me. He's like, hey, I watched this TikTok where someone made mashed potatoes and they used a potato ricer. You should get a potato ricer. And I'm like, well, I have a potato ricer, but I never use it. And so he's like, oh, you should use it and see if we can tell a difference. Okay. So obviously I've used this before. The great thing about a potato ricer is that if you want really smooth and creamy mashed potatoes, this is really the ticket to doing that. However, it takes an unnecessarily long time to do it, especially if you're cooking for a family. So while it does turn out really good, I would definitely save it for special occasions. I totally recommend this recipe if you guys like beef stew. It's definitely an awesome twist on that. I will link the original recipe down below and I hope you guys make it. All right, so for dinner tonight, I'm making Crunchwrap Supremes a la Taco Bell, except they're actually better at home. So I've got 4 pounds of ground beef in here. Every time I make taco meat, I always make extra because it's great leftover, and you can also use the leftover meat for chili too. So I've just got a little bit of olive oil in the bottom. So we're gonna saute this beef. I'm gonna add just a little bit of water to make sure it doesn't stick too much. So our beef is done. It actually took quite a bit to cook it all because it was quite a bit of beef. But anyway, I used one of my Pampered Chef meat mashers and chopped it all up as it was cooking. So in this bowl, I've got a bunch of seasonings, and I can link this recipe down below, but it's chili powder, garlic powder, onion powder, minced onion, cumin, oregano, paprika, cayenne pepper, and then salt and pepper. It seems like a lot, but it's a lot of meat. So I'm just gonna give this a stir. And then we're gonna add a cup of water and then put the lid on. Set it to the ceiling. And then this just cooks on high pressure for 3 minutes. I know it doesn't seem like very much, but since the beef is already cooked, it's just making it more tender. So I let the steam come off from this. I did a manual pressure release, and you can see kind of like how fine and crumbly the ground beef is. That's what you get when you cook it in the Instant Pot like this, which is why it's supposed to be like drive-through or fast food tacos. One thing I forgot to do was add the Worcestershire sauce. I was supposed to add like 3 tablespoons of that, and I totally forgot. Totally just forgot until I tasted it. So I'm just gonna add some, stir it up, give it a taste, and then I need to prep the rest of the ingredients. The great thing about having it in the Instant Pot too is that you can keep it warm. So if you're doing like a big, you know, dinner or having a get together at your house, it's super easy. Okay, so I diced up my tomatoes. I am going to go ahead and shred up my cheese. I've got my rotary grater here, so I'll link it down below. I've been loving to use it for shredding cheese. It's super convenient. I can't believe how easy and quick this is. We used it for Easter when I made mac and cheese. I had to shred like 2 pounds of cheese. It was super quick. All right, so here's everything we need for the crunch wraps. So I like to get these extra grande burrito shells from Mission if I can, because they are the right size for 1 crunch wrap. However, if you are watching your calories or you just want to watch your carbs, these are really, really good. They're the Mission Carb Balance Whole Wheat, and they only have 110 calories per big tortilla. You do have to add a little bit because there's not quite enough. They're obviously not as large as the grande ones, but they still work fine. Then I've got some chopped tomato, some shredded lettuce, Taco Bell sauce for dipping, nacho cheese. I'm gonna try this Pace brand. Normally I get, I forget what the brand is at Walmart, but this one was like $2 cheaper, so I figured we'd try it. Sour cream and my shredded cheese. And then you'll also need some little tostada shells, which I crisped up in the air fryer. So we're gonna go ahead and build our crunch wraps. I actually think I did this wrong because I think you're supposed to put the nacho cheese on the bottom and then the beef on top, but whatever. No one complained. And then you add your tostada shell on there, some sour cream, some tomatoes, lettuce, and then you just add a little bit of shredded cheese on the top just so it can kind of seal as it melts. Fold the sides in and then put it face down in a skillet with some cooking spray, and that will go ahead and seal it. You know, flip it over until it's brown on the outside, and then you can cut it in half. Okay, so for the lower carb tortillas, I just have a little circle of tortilla here. I'm gonna put that right there so then I can fold it over just like I did the other one. Okay, cut in half. Ta-da. All right, so I want you guys to comment below. What is your guilty pleasure McDonald's breakfast? Well, mine is a sausage and cheese English muffin, but you can actually make one at home along with the hash brown using turkey sausage patties from Walmart for around 400 calories. So I just toasted up an English muffin, put some turkey sausage on there with some cheese, and then I get these hash brown patties from Walmart. You can just toast them in the air fryer. They're super good. And if you don't like McDonald's, give this video a thumbs up. Okay, so next we're gonna make some chicken cutlets. And this is always one of my go-tos because this is also something that I normally have all the ingredients on hand for, especially if I have chicken in the freezer. So I defrosted some chicken breasts and I'm just pounding those out with a piece of saran wrap on one of my cutting boards. And then you want them to be basically all the same thickness, and you want to pound them a little bit thinner than regular chicken breasts so that they cook evenly. I season them with salt, pepper, garlic powder, and then I beat some egg with a little bit of water, got some flour, and then I always keep breadcrumbs or panko breadcrumbs in my pantry. So I'm going to season those with some salt, pepper, garlic powder, and parsley. And then you just want to take your evenly pounded chicken, dredge it in the flour mixture, and then it goes into the egg mixture, and then it goes into the breadcrumbs. So with these steps, I prefer to use a fork so my hands don't get super messy, and just make sure every step you're coating the chicken evenly and completely, because this is obviously what's going to make that crust on your chicken and is going to make the chicken moist inside and make it so that the oil doesn't obviously seep through into the chicken. And you can use these in a ton of different ways. On this particular night, I made a salad out of mine, which is one of my favorite ways to have crispy chicken, but you could also do like a chicken parmesan, or you could put this over like a risotto or a rice or a pasta. Super easy to make. You just want to go ahead and heat up some neutral oil. So either you can use canola or vegetable or probably even avocado oil, and just fry those on medium-high heat until they are cooked through, and then I let them rest a little bit. I put this on some greens with some ranch dressing, sharp cheddar cheese, some tomatoes. This was so delicious. I love the combination of that crispy chicken on a salad. Yum. So next I'm putting together a freezer meal that I had waiting for me, in the freezer, which is mozzarella stuffed meatballs. And then I'm also going to make some gnocchi to go with it. So to cook these, I am just going to put them in a baking dish with some nonstick spray in the bottom, and I'm baking these from frozen, so I'm going to go ahead and pre-bake them first, and then we'll add some sauce. I'm using a couple different things that I got in my wild grain box. The first is this gnocchi, which Adam has been begging me to make for a while, and then I'm also using this slow fermented ciabatta loaf as well, which is delicious. So I'm going to go ahead and bake that. And then I'll try to find the recipe that I used for the sauce for this gnocchi. It was kind of a little bit different. It uses a little bit of Dijon mustard and white wine and onions and diced tomatoes and basil. I definitely would make it again. The only thing I would say about gnocchi, especially fresh gnocchi, is that it's actually better if after you boil it, you crisp it up in a skillet with a little bit of butter before you add it to the sauce. Otherwise, the gnocchi just gets a little bit, I don't know how to say it, like just a little bit mushy and spongy without being crisped up on the outside. So for the sauce, I am chopping up some garlic. I needed some Dijon mustard, but I just had a little bit left in the jar, so I poured the wine in there, shook it around, put it in my pan with the garlic and olive oil, and I'm just going to cook that down a little bit and then add a can of diced tomatoes. And then I'm also going to add some tomato sauce as well. I'm going to save some of the tomato sauce for the meatballs when those come out of the oven. I'm going to boil my gnocchi, and then I am just going to pour a little bit of that tomato sauce over each meatball and just put them back in the oven for the marinara sauce to heat through until they are fully cooked through as well. These you could also serve with pasta or really anything. You could put them on a sandwich if you wanted to. It's basically just meatballs wrapped around a little string cheese, like a little piece of string cheese in the middle. So to finish the sauce for the gnocchi, I'm adding some cream, and then I'm just taking the gnocchi out of the pot and adding it into the sauce. And then you do want to let that cook a little bit, obviously, just to let the gnocchi soak up some of that sauce. So I'm going to stir that together. And then my bread was ready, so that came out of the oven. I cannot recommend wild grain enough. You guys know I love to try to make bread, but it rarely turns out correctly. And this is just such a time saver for me. And it makes great sides for dinner. So I added some freshly grated Parmesan cheese to the gnocchi, added a little bit on top of the meatballs. Those turned out good. The kids liked them also. And then there is our gnocchi after I let it rest for a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and slice my bread. Always be careful when you are using a serrated knife. Don't cut your finger like I did once. And then I asked Adam to help me film this part. Is it too close? Think about you're watching it on the screen. How would you like to see it?
I would not.
Okay, so here was our dinner. I added some fresh basil to the top of the gnocchi. Very, very good, especially with that fresh bread on the side. So this dinner was yet another idea from my kids. So we had this leftover pulled pork, and Kira was like, do you remember we went to Kansas City that one time and I had this pulled pork mac and cheese, and it was actually at Jack Stack's in Kansas City, but I was like, you know what? I can probably try to recreate that. Not exactly the same, but my own twist. So mac and cheese is actually a great thing to make out of pantry ingredients, because if you have cheese and you have milk and you have pasta, you're going to be able to make it. Also, I typically keep Velveeta on hand too. I use a combination of Velveeta and cheddar cheese in this mac and cheese. So obviously I just made a roux with flour and seasonings and butter and cooked that down a little bit. And then I added some milk and some cheese to the milk. The key with this is that, especially with milk, when you add the milk to the roux, you just want to make sure you turn the heat down. Usually I turn it down to medium or a little bit lower. And you want to make sure that you're whisking it as much as possible. Milk is one of those things that will obviously burn and scorch on the bottom of the pot if you don't watch it well. But after our Easter mac and cheese fail, This one was actually a little bit better. If you guys didn't watch that video, it's on my channel. So I'm adding some cubed Velveeta to my milk sauce there, and I'll just cook that down until it is all melted. I decided to use shells for this because that's what I had in the pantry, and that works. So once those were cooked, I added the cooked cheese, the finished cheese sauce to there. Also, a good tip that I have is season your bechamel before you add the cheese with a pinch of cayenne and some mustard powder and just a pinch of sugar. I know it sounds weird, but it really does help the flavor of the cheese sauce. So I am adding that to a baking dish, and I'm just going to add this to an 8-inch square baking dish just because I'm making a very small batch. Make sure that it's spread out evenly, and then I'm going to add a little bit of cheese to the top just to kind of make a little bit of a crust. I didn't add any breadcrumbs to this. Sometimes I do, but I figured with this dish it would probably be a little bit better without a crunchy top since we're going to put the pulled pork on there. Once I heated the pulled pork up in the oven, we just went ahead and topped our bowls of mac and cheese with that. And then we had salad on the side, drizzled a little bit of barbecue sauce over the pork, and definitely make this. You could also do a shortcut with Velveeta shells and cheese. I think that would be pretty good too. Okay, so steak probably doesn't sound like very much of a pantry meal. However, it normally is for me because I typically have potatoes on hand and I typically have some kind of beef or steak in my freezer. So that is what we are having tonight. These are actually some tenderloin steaks that I believe I got them from Sam's Club and stuck them in the freezer, but I'm going to go ahead and sous vide these for dinner. So I'm just seasoning all sides of this with the Cabela's blackening seasoning. We actually randomly picked that up when we were on our travels one time, and it turned out being really good. So I like to coat the steak with something that has a little bit of kick, just so the steak has some flavor. And then I'm taking those and putting them into 1 quart Ziploc bags. This is what we're going to use to sous vide the steaks. Now, I'm always under the impression that people are a little bit intimidated by sous vide, or they're not quite sure how to get started, or maybe they think it's expensive or something like that. So I'm thinking about doing a dedicated sous vide video because I think that would be super helpful for people who are thinking about it. But one of the things that people sometimes do is they vacuum seal their meat with a vacuum sealer, which I have one, but it's just as easy to use a Ziploc bag and a lot quicker. So for my baked potatoes, I always just scrub those really well, dry them off, and then I put them on a baking sheet with foil and poke them with a knife so that they don't explode in your oven. And then I just add a little bit, a drizzle of olive oil and some salt to the outside, and then rub the potato all over. That way the skins taste good too. And then I put them in the oven at usually 400 or 425 degrees. Depending on how big they are, they can take like anywhere from 50 minutes to an hour and 10 or hour and 20 minutes. I picked up some of these stuffed mushrooms at Aldi, and I don't care for mushrooms, but Adam really likes them. So I thought I would get him these to try. I think they were the spinach artichoke stuffed mushrooms, but obviously these are very simple. You just put them on a baking tray or in a baking dish and pump them in the oven. I did that while the potatoes were baking. Adam said these were okay. I don't think they were his favorite, but he ate them because he loves mushrooms. And then I made some green beans, and there is the steak. Obviously, I seared it on a hot pan before we served it, but it's always perfectly cooked every time. And then I've also got my baked potato with butter and sour cream and cheese and a little bit of green onion. One of my favorite dinners, honestly, is steak and baked potatoes. You guys, don't forget to check out Body Restore. Grab that 20% off coupon down below. Click the link. That'll take you over to Amazon. Super easy. I hope you pick some up either for yourself or for Mother's Day. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.